Hello, friends. Welcome again to 12 Minutes to Clat. My name is Nehil. I am your verbal mentor and your logical reasoning mentor. Okay. So, I've experienced a lot of people face a problem with the questions talking about paradox and flaws. Okay. So, what we've done today is taken I've taken 4 5 sets here for you, wherein we'll be discussing how to resolve paradox questions, how to resolve flaw questions. Okay. So, paradox and flaw in the argument. This is what we're going to focus on. What is a paradox? First of all, paradox is something which is self contradictory, something which you would not expect to happen. Okay. So you will have something which is not expected to happen but still happening. You'll have to justify it, and that's how you resolve a paradox. So let's take a look at the first question. Let's read the question for starters. Penciling province has a relatively east this is easy, okay, easy and cheap housing policy, and is attracting a fast growing population that has put increasing demands on its land. The housing department that is responsible for providing houses to the people of the region has struggled to keep up with the demand and still remain profitable. So, housing department has struggled to keep up with demand and still remain profitable. So, they have struggled to keep up with the demand and still remain profitable. Yet now it is asking the Penciling province to change land ownership rules that could reduce its revenues and restricts its future flexibility in constructing houses profitably. So they're already struggling to keep up with demand and remain profitable. And in spite of that, they're asking the government to change land ownership rules that could, in fact, reduce its revenues and restrict its future flexibility. So even though it could reduce its revenues and restrict its future flexibility, the uh, the housing department is asking the government to change land ownership rules. Right? Which of the following would, if true, most logically help explain why the housing department is asking the government to change land ownership rules? Now, the paradox here is if the land ownership rules are changed, it could reduce the housing department's revenues and restricts its future flexibility. In spite of that, they're asking the government to change the rules. Okay. A says the housing department is planning taking over of fallow land that requires the approval of the government. This is a new point altogether. We're not talking about fallow land. Neither does it resolve the paradox. B says the housing department believes changing land ownership rules is inevitable and that doing so now will allow better planning and thus future profitability. What is inevitable? Inevitable is something which is bound to happen. So if I say the housing department believes changing land ownership rules is inevitable, it is bound to happen. If not now, later on, but it will happen. So if so, what they're saying is you better change them now. Why? Because doing so now will allow better planning and thus future profitability. So if they change the land ownership rules now, they can plan better in the future be profitable because the land ownership rules are going to change anyway, and that is one reason why they're still asking the government to change land ownership rules, even though it reduces the revenues and restrict future flexibility. So B resolves the paradox. C says few, if any, penciling government officials have some monetary interest in the housing department. This talks about penciling government officials having monetary interest, still does not resolve the paradox. D says the housing department believes that the population is not likely to continue to grow. So, if the population is not likely to continue to grow, why would they even worry? Because they're struggling to keep with demand and still remain profitable. If the housing department believes the population is not likely to grow, they don't need to ask the government to change land ownership rules, right? E says long-term projections suggest that growing density will adversely affect the demand of houses. If long-term projections suggest that growing density will adversely affect the demand for houses, the housing department would rather say that they will not want to invest in anything, no, because the demand for houses is going to drop, right? So guys, सीधी सी बात है, यहाँ पे पैराडॉक्स क्या है? पैराडॉक्स ये है कि हाउसिंग डिपार्टमेंट गवर्नमेंट से बोलता है रूल्स चेंज कर दो, उसके रेवेन्यूज कम हो रहे हैं लेकिन फ्यूचर फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी भी अफेक्ट हो रही है। सवाल उठता है कि वो ऐसा क्यों बोल रहे हैं। हम जस्टिफाई कर रहे हैं इसको क्योंकि यार ये देखो होना तो है ही ऐसा, अभी कर दोगे तो प्लानिंग और बेटर प्लानिंग अच्छी हो जाएगी और फ्यूचर प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी पे हम काम कर सकते हैं। दैट्स हाउ द पैराडॉक्स इज रिजॉल्व्ड, राइट? आई होप यू गेट द जिस्ट ऑफ इट। लेट्स टेक अनदर क्वेश्चन. Naval ships use different alarm calls to warn each other of nearby attacking ships, depending on whether the danger comes from from a ship on sea, or from a submarine. So what are we saying? Different alarm calls in case of ship on sea or in case of a submarine. This is the paradox. Okay, एक ही alarm call use कर सकते हैं. You could have used one alarm call. Why are we using two? Okay, so we have to give an explanation. Which one of the following, if true, contributes most to an explanation of the different alarm calls of naval ships described above? A says, by varying the pitch of its alarm call, a naval ship can indicate the number of attacking ships approaching. Guys, we are not concerned with the number of ships, okay? Number of ships मेरा concern नहीं है. Number of ships से also the consideration is different alarm calls in case of a ship on sea, in case of a submarine. यहाँ पे तो I'm only talking about naval ships, only ships. B says different sea-based attacking ships are responsible for different number of ships capsizing incidents. So it says different sea-based attacking ships are responsible for different number of ships capsizing incidents. Still does not tell me why I need to use different alarm calls, right? C says no attacking ships that pose a danger to naval ships can attack from both sea and under the sea. Again, ये alarm calls को तो refer कर ही नहीं रहा है. Look at D. D says naval ships execute different strategies when confronted with sea-based attacking ship or a submarine. मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ, दोनों में जो उनका स्ट्रैटेजी होती है अलग अलग होती है. तो अलार्म कॉल से क्या होगा, आपको पता चल जाएगा कौन सी स्ट्रैटेजी एग्जीक्यूट करनी है. We're saying naval ships execute different strategies when confronted with sea-based attacking ship or a submarine, which justifies the alarm call. But if I'm sitting at the ship and I have to execute a strategy, I can figure out from the alarm call which strategy to execute, and that's why different alarm calls are important. E says certain sea-based attacking ships attack only naval ships, whereas every ship that attacks naval ships from under the sea attacks other commercial ships too. This talks about what all can be attacked through what all. Still does not talk about alarm calls. I think easy answer. अलग अलग अलार्म कॉल्स हैं. क्यों अलग अलग अलार्म कॉल्स हैं? क्योंकि अलग अलग स्ट्रैटेजीज हैं. स्ट्रैटेजी पता चलनी चाहिए, इसलिए अलार्म कॉल अलग है. ठीक. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. In Hanyuan County, China, pear crops have been traditionally pollinated by hand, which has kept pear orchard productivity unnaturally low. When honeybees known to be efficient pollinators of pear crops were introduced into China in 1980, the pear fruit productivity increased by up to 130% in some orchards, but then sharply decreased in 1985. So we're saying pear crops have been pollinated by hand, but honeybees were introduced in 1980, productivity rose by up to 130%, then decreased in 1985. What happened between 1980 and 1985 that the productivity decreased? First of all, we need to understand why did the productivity increase? The productivity increased because of the introduction of honeybees, which are very efficient pollinators. So pollination ज़्यादा हुआ, तो productivity बढ़ गई. Which of the following statements, if true, would best explain the 1985 decrease in pear fruit productivity? Okay. A says prices for pear fruit fell between 1980 and 85 following the rise in the production and fall in demand. Are we concerned with the prices? No. We are concerned with the productivity. I can safely eliminate it. B says imported trees are often more productive than native trees because they don't carry the native pests and diseases. This talks about the different types of trees. But I'm concerned with why did the productivity fall from between 1980 and 85? So I can eliminate this. See देखिए, look at C. After 1980, farmers resorted to heavy use of insecticides on pear orchards to boost the productivity even further. What happens when heavy use of insecticides happens? Honeybees are affected. So increased use of insecticides will lead to decrease in the population of honeybees. Decrease in the population of honeybees will lead to less pollination. Less pollination will tell you why the productivity decreased in 1985. So from 1980 onwards, farmers started using insecticides, which in turn killed honeybees, and that's why the productivity then decreased by 1985. So C gives you a valid explanation as to why the productivity decreased. D says the honeybee population in Asia remained at approximately the same level between 1980 and 85. If this is the case, this does not tell us why the productivity decreased. Honeybee population the same hai, it's the same population. So productivity, if anything, should have increased or stayed the same at least. E says prior to 1980, another species of insect pollinated the pear crops, but not as efficiently as the honeybees that were introduced in 1980. This talks about prior to 1980. We are concerned with the period between 1980 and 85. Okay, prior to 1980, I don't need to be bothered with this, right? थोड़ा समझ में आ रहा है पैराडॉक्स कैसे करते हैं? ठीक है, चलिए. Let's take a look at the next question. Suncorp, a new corporation with limited funds, has been clearing large sections of the tropical Amazon forest and cattle ranching. This practice continues even though greater profits can be made from rubber tapping. Greater profits from rubber tapping, which does not destroy the forest, than from cattle ranching, which does destroy the forest. So rubber tapping does not destroy the forest. Cattle ranching destroys the forest. Yet, what is Suncorp doing? Clearing large sections for cattle ranching. Paradox. मेजर आपका प्रॉफिट कहाँ पर है? रबर टैपिंग में. एनवायरमेंट फ्रेंडली क्या है? रबर टैपिंग. लेकिन सनकॉर्प क्या कर रहा है? डिस्ट्रॉइंग द फॉरेस्ट. Suncorp is doing cattle ranching. So you can make better profits from rubber tapping, and it is environmental friendly more than cattle ranching. Yet Suncorp is still indulging in cattle ranching. We have to justify as to why this is happening. Now please note, Suncorp is a new corporation with limited funds. पैसे कम है उनके पास, ठीक? Which of the following, if true, most helps to explain why Suncorp has been pursuing the less profitable of the two economic activities mentioned above? Less profitable is what? Cattle ranching, right? A says the soil of the Amazon forest is very rich in nutrients that are important in the development of grazing lands. So, if this is the case, we should still, this does not tell us why okay, this tells us that soil is rich in nutrients that are important in the development of grazing land. Still does not tell me why they are following rubber tapping, why they're following cattle ranching instead of rubber tapping. Not helpful. B says cattle ranching operations that are located in tropical climates are more profitable than cattle ranching operations that are located in cold weather climates. We are not concerned with cattle ranching operations in different areas. We're talking about this particular area. Okay? Amazon forest. I don't need to go beyond this. In certain districts, profits made from cattle ranching are more heavily taxed than made from any other industry. It says certain districts, profits made from cattle ranching are more heavily taxed. Taxation is not the concern here. We're talking about profits. Also, it only talks about cattle ranching. I have to compare cattle ranching with rubber tapping, right? Some of the cattle that are raised on land cleared in the Amazon are killed by wildcats. Irrelevant. A new point altogether. What happens to the cattle is not my concern. E. The amount of money required to begin a rubber tapping operation is twice as high the amount needed to begin a cattle ranch. So between the two, which is less expensive? Cattle ranching. And what's the problem with Suncorp? तो Suncorp लिमिटेड फंड्स में है, इसीलिए वो क्या कर रहे हैं? वो कैटल रैंचिंग कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि अमाउंट ऑफ मनी रिक्वायर्ड फॉर रबर टैपिंग is twice as high. This justifies the paradox. Clear? I'm sure you have a fair idea of how to resolve paradox now. Let's take a look at one more question. Adult female rats who have never before encountered rat pups will start to show maternal behaviors after being confined with the pup for about 7 days. This period can be considerably shortened by disabling the female sense of smell or by removing the scent producing glands of the pup. So, adult female rats will start to show maternal behavior after confined for about 7 days, and we can shorten this period if the sense of smell is removed or scent producing glands of the pup are removed. So if there is no smell, the maternal behavior is quickened. Which of the following hypothesis best explains the contrast described above? I think this is a simple question. A says the sense of smell in adult female rats is more acute than in rat pups. It says the sense of smell is more acute. We are not concerned with who has more acute sense of smell. It has more to do with what does the sense of smell do. B says the amount of scent produced by rat pups increases when they are in the presence of a female rat than did not bear them. It simply tells me that the amount or the intensity is more. Still does not help me talk about the contrast described above. Female rats that have given birth are more affected by olfactory cues than are female rats that have never given birth. Now, what is olfactory? Olfactory is a sense of smell. This, we are talking about female rats who have never before encountered rat pups. Okay. She says female rats that have given birth. That means these are female rats which have encountered rat pups are more affected by olfactory cues than are female rats that have never given birth. Again, this is not helping me at all. D says a female rat that has given birth shows maternal behavior toward rat pups that she did not bear more quickly than does a female rat that has never given birth. This only compares the female rat that has given birth to a female rat that has not given birth. E says the development of a female rat's maternal interests. Mind you, what are we talking about? Maternal behaviors. The development of female rat maternal interest in a rat pup that she did not bear is inhibited or restricted by the odor of the pup. Inhibited by the odor of the pup. That is why if we remove the odor of the pup, that is, if we disable the female sense of smell or remove the scent producing glands of the pup, the maternal interest develop much more quickly. तो ये क्या बोल रहा है कि फीमेल रैट के मैटरनल इंटरेस्ट रैट पप में उसके ओडर से रिस्ट्रिक्ट होते हैं. तो जब हम ये ओडर हटा देंगे तो वो टाइम जो है मैटरनल इंस्टिंक्ट डेवलप करने का वो शॉर्टन हो जाएगा. ठीक है. दिस इज हाउ यू रिजॉल्व पैराडॉक्स क्वेश्चन, राइट? This is it for the time being, guys. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you so much for your time.